Good morning, gentlemen, and sorry for this delay. I did put my little message there at the top. My lovely wife blessed me with breakfast like 5 minutes before the stream started, and it's too good to let go. I need another minute or two just to finish up. So please forgive me. Maybe take the chance, go get some coffee, do something, keep yourself busy for another 2 minutes so I don't get in the dark box here and I can enjoy my breakfast quickly. The timing wasn't very good, but the breakfast is really good.
Take it easy and enjoy.
Thank you, Sjoerd. Okay, all right, that should do it. Good morning again. Morning, Jet Power, Paul, Christopher, Rob, Steve, Krister, Archibras. Guys, welcome. Sorry for the delay, but I think you understand. So I'm grateful for that. Okay, so I hope you guys have had fun with this version of the Zibomod. There's one thing I'm not sure of at this point in time, but I think it's really nice to fly. It's very enjoyable. So I hope you guys had the same experience. Hello, Marius. And there goes somebody. Right, so I'm going to jump in quickly and get going. I don't see ATC yet. Let's just check WebEye.
On traffic, Skymatix 78, lining up runway 17 right and wait.
Yeah, there's no ATC yet, so let's get a move on. Yeah, I'll skip an important part. There let's just check all of these things and then add our runway 08 ILS 08 at Gatwick, Tumba transition, and this other one is no one. There we go. Okay, I haven't tried Beta Pushback this morning. If there is an update, it will tell me just now. So then we'll run it afterwards. So far, so good. Good. I'm glad you guys like it.
Lyon traffic, Thomas is 459, Bravo Chang, ready to push and start.
Try that again. Right, okay. Bit of a sharp turn there at the end. Request. Good morning, Linda. She's back in business.
Lyon traffic, Skymatix VA 8, taking off runway 17 right.
Ready for pre-flight procedure.
Lyon traffic, Skymatix 04, line up and wait, runway 17 right.
Right, so let's start the AP. The only thing we are waiting for, taxi lights on, should be on. The only thing we need to wait for is just the packs. So we're going to start setting up the rest so long.
Run to cockpit, please show me where you want to go. Run to cockpit, tow is driving up.
Hey, Nevada Rocks, good morning.
Some doors are still opened or the GPU or the ASU are still connected. I'm waiting for all of them closed and disconnected, then I will proceed.
Tango Bravo, Tango, holding short Alpha 2 for runway 17 right.
My goodness, I'm going to be the last one out of here. Well, yeah. Krister, I haven't checked, but I presume that's you over there. Not sure. Might as well check. That I'm asking anyway. Yeah, I see it's you. Excellent. I see we're only 5 guys flying this morning.
Take off runway 17 right.
Before start procedure.
Before start procedure.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Before start procedure complete.
Alright, we've got everyone strapped in. Give us a ring if you need anything.
Ready for before start checklist. Trim up.
Tow connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake. Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Start number 2 engine.
Skymatix VA 9 lining up and waiting runway 17 right.
She don't listen. Start number 2 engine. Come on. There we go.
Starting number 2 engine.
Hmm.
and 2. Starter cutout.
Yeah, Nevada rocks. Mixter has been between him and Zibo. They've been setting it up according to the Boeing tables, okay? And it's very, very close to the real thing now. So if you make use of any tweaks or anything in SimBrief, you know, it's going to be out. So just be careful that you don't put any extra fuel factors or anything into your planning, eh? And then at the end of the day, we just need to report back on the forum so the guys see what you guys are experiencing as well. Hello, Kies. Alles goed, dankie.
Disconnecting tow, standby.
Start number 1 engine.
Starting
Hello,
number
Flight
1 engine.
SIMMER-X, Jakarta. How are things in Jakarta? Yeah, okay, we're freezing here today. It's flipping cold. Joburg and some parts of South Africa is covered in snow. I think we had more snow overnight than we've had in the whole of winter.
459, clear for takeoff on my 17 right.
Ish.
25 and 2.
Olga.
That's a lot. 36C.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time on other side flight.
Starter cutout. Engine start procedure complete. Ready for before taxi procedure.
Before taxi procedure.
Before taxi procedure.
Not sure why they were not on. I missed them. Got them now. Would have been fun to fly and then we get that
Before taxi
window on
procedure
that side
complete.
fogging up.
I am
Fortunately,
ready
it's
for
her
before
side.
taxi checklist.
Alright, let's go. Hello, Alex. Nevada Rocks, no, the SimBrief profile has not been updated. What I'm saying is if you update it, because I know a lot of the users, I've seen it. You know, they go and they tweak that thing. So what I'm saying is if you updated your one, then don't do it. Okay? Because we're trying to match the Boeing figures. Once we know we're on the Boeing figures, it's easier for me to tweak it and then distribute it again. You see what I'm saying? So in terms of fuel flow and stuff, well, all I can tell you is that it is very close to Boeing figures. If it becomes a problem, we have to address SimBrief. Morning, Alex. Sorry, I don't know if I said hello. Hello, Twixter. Here's the man himself. Good morning, Twixter.
Good day, Nico.
How are you?
Oh, just fine. I actually happened to be sitting here tuning fuel flows as we were discussing this. By tuning, I've spent the whole day pretty much testing all of the cruise altitudes at typical cruise Mach numbers and comparing those to the Boeing data. And once I do that over the whole envelope, which takes a lot of testing, then I can see a profile of if we've got high or low drag somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're really very close.
Okay.
But it still needs a little bit of tweaking to be right on, especially in the high Mach regime. But we're getting much closer than we probably ever have been, to be honest. So that's a little exciting. Time is it there in South Africa, anyway?
Bigster, apologies. You will not believe what happened. As you were talking, my brother phones me. So I had to quickly mute myself. I didn't want to interrupt you there. So I missed some of your conversation. The time right now is 9:22 a.m.
Oh, well, it's 2:22 a.m. here.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I couldn't help my brother, so I said to him, you know, it's one of those things. So I'm back in the stream now, and we can continue our discussion. I'm really pleasantly surprised that you could join us. Thank you so much.
Well, it's just because I've had this bad habit lately of staying up till 3 or 4 in the morning working on this.
Gotcha.
You know,
Gotcha.
and I saw earlier today that you had. I just happened to notice you had it stream programmed when I was on YouTube, so
Yeah.
I tried to remind myself to check in on it.
Cool.
Instead of, I was between tuning sessions, so I was able to remind myself to come in and see how things are going.
Excellent. Well, yeah, and that you happen to be working on the fuel flow, and we were just happening to talk about it. You know, it's all good. I love it.
Well, I think it's one thing that's kind of exciting is, you know, there may still be some things to work on Zibo's part, but he's gotten the engine formulas really close. He's figured out the algorithms for all of the engine characteristics, and that's quite a bit of work.
Yes.
Way above my pay grade, you know. And it seems to be working from my flight testing, because the proof is in the pudding. You know, when I do the flight testing and I check the cruise N1 values at given weights and certain Mach numbers, and if they match the Boeing performance manual, that's a great accomplishment right there.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, the second thing is at a given weight that, as we were just discussing, the fuel flow gets very close. And our goal is to get, you never get it exact, right? And I say this from real life experience. I've never seen a real airplane that exactly matched the book figures. There's usually, you know, it can be as high as 2 or 3% error, but usually in the real world, of course, when they get the data on a particular airplane, then the flight plans are adjusted for that. In other words, they'll put in a bias for each tail number based on what its historical fuel economy is, and then you get pretty accurate numbers. But it's customized for each and every aircraft in the fleet. But we're really close right now. I would say we're within less than 1.5%.
That is very close. No, that's very close.
But I have to test the entire flight envelope across the entire weight spectrum and all of the different cruise blocks. So that's a lot of testing. So.
Absolutely. No, I can imagine.
And while we're doing that, of course, sometimes you discover little things that would have gone unnoticed. Right now, we're still working hard on the high altitude. I say what I would call the edge of the envelope curve for cruise performance.
Acceleration
it still needs a little tweaking at flight level 400 and above. So,
Okay.
it's at least it's not making me happy at that point. So I'm exploring. The delicate thing is getting the Mach drag exactly right, where it comes on,
Yes.
and how much you get. And it's not really easy to do that because each and every airfoil segment has to be tuned
Flaps
for
Wow.
Mach-induced drag.
Wow. So that is a job and a half.
Yeah, it's really the most. Well, I shouldn't say it is it's not the only one, but it is probably the most delicate of all the tuning to get right.
Okay.
Um, and and that shows up when you're at the very edge of the envelope. Like I say, if you're at flight level 410 at 60 tons, say that's legal weight for that altitude, but it's the weight is above optimum, which would be 55 tons for 41,000 feet. So,
Okay.
and that kind of makes any discrepancy in the drag and in the engine tuning show up greater, right? Because you're right at the
Gotcha.
edge of the envelope.
Yeah.
So, but it's looking really good pretty much at all altitudes now. And I would say, to be very honest, without being premature, that we're probably closer than we ever have been in 7 years. And we've gotten pretty close a few times, but it was through trial and error tuning, not as much by having one particular value being very predictable, which I think finally, when I say that finally, with Zibo having come up with a good formula for the engine, that once we've tested it and those numbers are predictable, in other words, they test out correctly, then we can predict what other things need to be tuned to make the delta formula work, i.e.,
Sure.
lift versus drag versus thrust, and so it's exciting for me because it makes my job a little bit easier than it was before. Because I can now look at it and say, okay, we've got a problem with base drag, flat plate drag, or we have a problem with lift-induced drag, or we have a problem with Mach-induced drag. So, but I can only do that once I've mapped the whole envelope, and I can look at the trends. For instance, it may be doing great, and then I get above 35,000 feet at a Mach number above 0.78, and all of a sudden additional drag starts showing up, or not enough. And we can see then that it's a Mach-induced drag issue at that point in the envelope. So it becomes very predictable. So I'm not going to say we're going to get it perfect at this point, but it's looking really, really promising right now that we're going to be so close on it that there won't be anybody to compete with it. I'll put it that way.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And you can see from the comments on the stream, the guys love it as well. So you guys just keep on rocking, man. You just do your thing. We'll test and we'll get it out there and we'll spread the word.
Well, I think we've got, it depends on how much time I can put in it. Right now, I'm taking time away from everything else to do this for the last week or two, couple of weeks. But and I always forget to turn my comments on here so I can see what people in the stream here are saying. Let me get that fixed. Let's see here.
Yeah, I must be honest with you. I love the fact that you are here and you can interact with the people. If you can get the comments going, you can, answer some of these guys. Christer V-SkyCheck made a comment there, fuel flow on the takeoff roll and things like that. That's, again, above my pay grade. You would know better how to answer those kind of things. All I know is
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just hear you getting it close to the numbers and I'm happy,
Well, like I say, as we've come along over the years, it used to be that everything that had anything to do with the flight model, and I mean that included the engines as well as the airframe and the airfoils and flight controls. I was handling most all of that while Zibo was busy programming all of the systems and control interfaces, all of the switches and dials and indications, all of that stuff, which, as you know, has matured a lot over many years.
Yeah.
But as we have gotten more recently, Zibo has put a lot of that stuff into his programmed model, i.e. the engine and the autopilot, for instance, today are all Zibo. It's not laminar. There's no laminar stuff in there. It's all Zibo.
Yes.
But when that stuff gets programmed in the code, then I need an interface to tune it because I'm not a programmer. He is. And I cannot then tune those items. So he tunes anything's there. But we now have an interface. He's created a special tool. I can go in there and tune things in my tuning session just using an interface that's just him and I have.
Yes.
So,
yes.
but it allows me to do what he would normally have to do through programming. And it really makes my job a lot easier because some of the things would require me to, stop the program, stop X-Plane, and then go to plane maker or go to airfoil maker or wherever else in order to make changes. So
yeah. Okay.
So it's gotten easier, but we're also that's allowed us to get a little bit closer to where we want to be. But the breakthrough, a week or 10 days ago or whatever it was, where he finally nailed down the engine code really, really closely, has allowed us to move forward a lot faster. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to remember now. I've had this on before. Just tell me, Nico, quickly, so I don't waste time here. Where I can turn on comment.
Okay, if you are you on your PC?
Yeah.
All right. All you need to do really is you just need to open the stream, and then the comments will be on the right-hand side. If you're on a PC, just in your browser, you go to the YouTube stream. Are you watching the actual live one? That's the other question.
I'm on Discord.
You're on Discord.
Here.
Okay. So yeah, you won't be able to see.
Otherwise, YouTube has a delay to it.
Yes, it does. There's no way of me sharing the YouTube comments live here, unfortunately. So what most guys do is they switch the YouTube on, but they turn the volume off on YouTube. So we interact live over here, and then the 8-second delay isn't a big issue later on, kind of thing. You see, and then at least you can see the feed on the comments. But I can't share the comments here in Discord coming from YouTube.
Maybe that is what I did do before.
Yeah.
Usually just when I'm like watching my big screen TV in the living room.
Yeah.
And then I go to the phone in order to log into Discord. It kind of does the same thing.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do here is do just like you asked. And
I'm going to send you a message quickly. I'll just show you my screen here, screenshot. If it will allow me.
Okay.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's what YouTube looks like. So you get the stream, and then you get the actual comments there on the side. So if you can get YouTube running and just mute the sound.
Yeah.
You can see the live video and comments and everything then. Well, the live video in Discord and comments then on that side.
Okay, let me see here. I really run YouTube up here on my desktop PC, so I think I have to go to my channel and then sign in.
In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to install Windows 10.
You get feedback there, right?
First,
Yeah.
Okay, just a second here. I'm spoiled downstairs because my TV is automatically set up to log into your YouTube channel. If
Gotcha.
I've got it in my channel list.
Can
Up
I
here
give you a
have it
link
too, but I
quickly?
just have to.
Can I give you a link?
Yeah, just a second.
Can I give you?
Yeah, that helps. That would save me a little bit of time.
There you go.
Oh, what did you put it in my inbox?
Your inbox here in Discord, yes.
Okay, just okay. There you go.
These mushrooms make you feel better. Like a lot better.
All right, so then you can just turn the sound off on that side and you watch the video this side, but you read the comments that side.
Yeah. Now I've got it.
Okay.
2:00 in the morning. I'm not thinking it.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm
Dexter,
not thinking it like speaking.
it's not the end of the world, my friend. Don't worry about it. It's nice to have, you know, but don't
Yeah.
let it bother you.
Yeah. Okay, I've got that up now.
Ooh, I see what you did, Alex. Thank you.
Okay, now I got it. So the comments over there on the left side of the screen.
Right.
All good. That took me long enough. You can tell I'm up past my bedtime.
It's fine. Uncle John is not here with us, but he obviously would know now. I'll have to tell him later if he's not listening. It's my daughter's birthday today. And this morning, 5 a.m., my wife decided to come and fetch the gift and everything and get everything ready for her. And she woke me up. So it feels like I've had a full day behind me already. I promise you, it's like been busy. Thanks, Alex. On a Saturday morning, I did not expect to get woken up at 5
Already been
a.m.
through that third cup of coffee for the morning.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Nico.
Thank you. My wife then spoiled me with a wonderful breakfast just 5 minutes before the stream was supposed to start. Man, it was good. So she made up for it. One of those things. Thank you, Steve.
Well, I missed the beginning of your stream. Is there anything specific that Zibo had asked you to test on this?
Negative, no. No, we're just doing our group flight.
What did you use for this flight? About a 65-ton takeoff? Or?
Ooh, nee, ons meld dan. Let me go check quickly. The takeoff weight was 66.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just curious where you were going to be in the envelope. So as I'm watching the watching how the airplane is doing, I got an idea
Yeah.
You know, where you are in the envelope.
Alex, she's 15 years old today, and the breakfast was scrambled eggs, toast, and some nice beef sausages. Ask. You had to ask. Okay. She just came upstairs and I told her that you guys are saying congratulations to her, and she said I must say to you guys.
Birthdays are always fun until you get to our age.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, YouTube won't allow me to tell you what I've got here to protect Alex. I'll tell you afterwards, don't worry. But baseball bat is not one of it. No. I'm thinking a bit larger and more dangerous. Dexter, this view okay for you? Can you see what you need to see?
Yeah, you know, I've got it up. You know, my desktop PC that you know is the one where I work at it. You know, to tune the Zibo is a big screen. You know, I've got a 55-inch TV, so
good.
Let me see. Are you screening and doing the 1080 today? Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1080. I always do 1080. Because our Ingress server is in London, UK, we have to stream all the way there, and then it only goes up to YouTube. So it's unfortunate that I can't really stream better. I mean, I've got a 500 meg fiber line. It's for internal in the country. The moment you cross the borders, they throttle you like crazy. So this is about the best I can do at this time. It's 1080.
Well, that's good enough.
Yeah.
I heard the 1,000 to go. You know,
Yeah, we're going to 38. No, it's true. It's correct.
Yeah,
we're going to 38.
Sure. So I just wondered. I heard it go off at 36, and that didn't seem.
Oh, I see. I didn't listen when it went off. The one thing I did also notice in my previous stream, you can go check that, the call out for transition altitude was also out by 1,000. It was completely out.
Oh.
So that's an interesting situation.
Yeah, so that's something to let Zibo know about.
Yeah.
That'd be the same issue there because that went off at 36 instead of 37.1.
And there we are in the cruise.
Yeah, the up through this altitude, you know, everything performs pretty well. Like I say, we're still working on improving flight level 400 and above. The Mach and getting the. Well, I don't think it's going to be anything to do with the engine, but that's what we'll find out after we get everything else up, whether or not we're just a little shy on residual thrust at 40,000 feet, 41,000 feet.
Dude, as always, I'll have it as my spare wheel, you know. Just like I have 2020 as my spare wheel, but clearly we have a vested interest in X-Plane, you know, so we'll stick here for a long time to come.
I'm just looking at a cruise chart here. What's your level off weight, say, in the FMS right now?
64.3.
I'm sorry, say again?
64.3.
Okay, so just below 65. And you're at 380. Target N1 should be about 88 close, and well, it depends on the speed it's telling you, because I'm looking at the long range cruise chart. And that's,
I haven't activated LRC, and I don't think it's operable, is it?
well, it depends on what you use for CL.
20.
Runaway 09 left.
I use 20 for CI.
Yeah, usually the LRC pretty closely equates to 30 PI of 30.
Okay.
Usually.
All right. Well, we're sitting at 92.45 now, 6 for N1, and you say it should be about 88 for my weight and altitude.
Just a second here. I think I lost your video feed here.
Morning, Antonio.
We'll go back to Discord. Over here. Oh, there we go. It was embedded in Discord, so I forgot that. I was looking on YouTube and couldn't find it.
Okay.
Okay. So you're doing 244.77, and at this altitude, a second here. At 38, at your current weight, long-range cruise would be 51 knots at 792. So if you want to do that or not, but if you put that in there, 251, 792, then we can do just an extemporaneous N1 and fuel flow check. See how it looks.
You say 0.792?
Yeah, just if you select the easiest ways usually is just hit the airspeed, put in MCP to change it over to knots instead of Mach, and you can MCP select it to 251.
251. Here you go.
And if it doesn't accelerate easily, this is just a personal choice. Sometimes when it's sitting in cruise and you're pretty near the edge of the envelope, right now the way it is, it doesn't want to accelerate very well. So I just come down into, it's what I do anyway. I come down to the N1 settings and just hit climb thrust to help it accelerate to that speed. Well, I just go to see where it says N1 limit on your FMS.
Yeah, I've set it. I've set it to climb speed.
Just select N1 limit.
Yeah, I've selected climb.
Well, instead of setting it to speed, go to N1 limit and hit climb thrust.
Yeah,
right?
I did.
Go down, to your N1, and that will give you, instead of, see, if you look at your engine display, it says cruise thrust, so it's not giving you climb thrust to accelerate.
No. I think you're still looking at the YouTube stream. Hold on.
Yeah.
Look in Discord stream. It's in climb.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely there.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. Yeah, it's really behind on the YouTube here.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. I'm surprised.
Yeah, like I say,
looking at it, still in cruise on the YouTube.
Yeah. Now, like I say, the Ingress server is in London, UK. I'm sitting in Joburg, South Africa, so it's got like 8,000 miles to travel before it reaches. The signal goes up there, then it goes up to the internet. That's where the delay comes from.
Okay, now I finally saw it. Actually, that was like 2-minute delay. Usually it's not that bad though. Usually
you
when
make
I'm
sure
watching YouTube and your
Fixed
display,
it.
it might be 15 or 20 seconds.
Yeah. Make sure that when you watch YouTube that you click the word live on the screen at the bottom. You should see the word live and then you click it, because sometimes it runs off the DVR. So you just need to click the word live to make it speed up and catch up.
Okay, we're doing like the recorded mode.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
See,
what I just did.
yeah, I have an option to force the speed down to like 1 second, okay? But then it only records, the DVR only records in, I think, 480p. It doesn't even go to HD. So it's good in the stream, but once you look at the playback a day or two later, it's rubbish. You can't use it. That's why I rather use the little bit of a delay and make sure the DVR does the proper HD save.
Well, I think, for most circumstances, that's perfectly acceptable, I would think.
Yeah. Well, and we've got Discord where we can see live video if we really want to, so here we are. We just sit here and we can talk real time as well.
Are you hitting some wave action there or something? Something's upsetting the...
Yeah. Well, let's see outside what the weather looks like. We might have an issue. There were, I don't see it now, but there were some bad weather here in the areas.
Yeah.
I don't see it now, but anyway.
That is one of the things that Laminar eventually needs to facilitate is, true 3D weather. So you can see true moisture in the clouds, so somebody can actually create and program a realistic radar. So you can actually use the radar to detect. Right now, you can see the weather out there, but you don't get a realistic representation of a bad storm in front of you.
Sure.
Because you don't know what altitude, you don't know anything. So current radar applications are almost useless.
Absolutely. Cresta, I just saw you crashed out there. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, now see, I'm seeing it this weight. Number one, in climb thrust, I see it's a couple of percent low. So that might be something to have Zibo look at. This is limits 99.7 and it's given us 97.7.
But I just put it back to cruise now. It was still in the climb.
Yeah. Yeah. But it shouldn't affect, once you get on speed, and that's, like I say, at these higher altitudes, higher weights, that's what I'm looking at right now, to see if we're getting excess Mach drag or something like that. Because at 7.9, this is where 7.9 and greater is where I'm seeing an issue with Mach drag. So tomorrow, I will probably complete the current airfoil update and send it to Zibo to compile into the, because I've been tweaking it for the last couple of days. The last one that he sent to you is that airfoil file is a couple of days old, and there have been quite a few tests. So this should drop back, like I say, to about 88%.
Gotcha.
So I can see right here that we've got more drag than we should have at this weight and this altitude. In order for it to hold LRC. Another indication of that, if you look up at I see you've got your angle of attack indicator up.
Yeah, you asked me for that, so I left it.
Yeah, it's good, because when you look at that, and this is one of the reasons I put it up there, just for awareness, the pitch attitude, if you're at long range cruise, normally should be about, or not the pitch, but the angle of attack should be about 2.4 if you're stable at cruise. And it doesn't matter what weight or what altitude, if you're actually at the LRC speed for that weight at that altitude, then your angle of attack would be about 2.4. The fact that it's at 3.0 right now tells me there's excess drag somewhere that needs to be accounted for. So, so as I say, the newest airfoil out here probably tomorrow. I'm hoping to have most all of that addressed, because this tells me that we've got, and my guess is it's probably the wing root file is making too much Mach drag. And that's the first place I'll look. Now, if you were at a lower altitude, you probably wouldn't see it, because LRC would be at a lower Mach number.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right, I need to start prepping for the descent quickly. Sorry, you continue talking. I'm just going to continue my side.
All right, I'm done with that. I just wanted to see what you were getting, and actually, at this weight and this altitude, that's one of the things I'm going to be looking at here when we get off the stream. So I'll be doing another test flight, and I'll be looking at that weight again to see how it does.
And Daniel, I'll do that just now. Let me just do one thing at a time. I'll check for you now. Okay.
Ready for descent procedure.
Now that VSI is going up and down, but the actual FD horizontal bar is not. Okay, not in the same. There's not a fixed sine wave that I can see. I can see there's movement. So we've got weather. All right, we've got a crosswind. We're flying high, air is thin. A sine wave would constitute oscillation. This is just skimming the waves, man. Hey, Twixter?
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. Likely the case that there's some up and down draft activity, you know.
Yeah. So the aircraft's
Especially like you say,
compensating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so let's quickly see. We need to go down. What? That is initial approach. Is that good enough? Negative. 3,000. 3,000. 3,000. 96. Zero. Right. Right, I think we've got it. So, frequencies, minimas, courses, set. Right. Good.
If I stop watching your Discord stream, that won't disconnect my voice connection with
No.
you, will it?
Depends on where you disconnect.
Okay.
If you do get disconnected, just come back into the room, that's all.
Yeah, okay. I just did that because, you know, I'm watching it, you know, I just looked at it and it had both streams up, YouTube and your Discord stream, which is just unnecessary traffic on my Wi-Fi.
Sure.
If you want to go back to your normal program Mach number, that's okay with me because I saw what I needed to.
There you go.
Approach top of descent.
Well, congratulations to her too. Send her my regards. I hope you have a good day. Thank you, Dead Power.
You have any further comments on the handling, Nico?
No, I just love flying this thing. It is so smooth. And that changes he helped me make on my rudder is very good. I love it.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure it would work out for you or not. I know you said that part of it had to do with your rudder pedals being a little squirrely themselves. So
Yes. Well, Dexter, I have calibrated them once in between us talking now. Okay, but the fact is, once it's calibrated, it runs on the track that you provided. You know, it's very stable. Even at landing, I don't have that weird sensation of rolling all over the runway the moment I touch down. You know, it's definitely much more stable, much more.
Well, that's good. It still needs to be fine-tuned in a lot of ways. I haven't had the chance yet to do extensive engine failure takeoff testing, which is the real test of the rudder being correct. And so I'm glad that's helpful. The just a comment here, and I hope that I'm not out of place by saying this. You know, when you on your what's the app that you use for sound effects and everything, XP Realistic?
Yes.
When you go into your shake, I think it's in the shake settings.
Yeah.
But one of those there. When you go to bank the aircraft, it swings the cockpit, and to be honest, when I'm watching it drives me nuts.
Like this. Yeah.
Yeah, because it shouldn't do that. In a real airplane, it wouldn't do that. I'll put it that way.
No,
so you
I
can
understand.
turn that off, and then.
I think the whole idea, the whole idea behind it is to give your eyes the fantasy of movement. You know, so let me just see. I
think the shape is good.
Yeah.
But unless you push on, even if you push on the rudder, right? If you think about it, you're sitting in the cockpit. When the cockpit moves left and right, you move with it. So even if the aircraft is shaken back and forth laterally, what you're seeing, in other words, the flight deck or the cockpit isn't going to rotate under you, right? It's going to stay forward. So as a real pilot, when I see that, it kind of makes, what's going on? What's wrong here? Something, because it, doesn't feel like it should do that.
I think it's this one. It's this tilt one. This one that we're talking about.
Yeah. And for me, I have those off. Acceleration, tilt, acceleration, zero. Because none of those would you have that happen to you in the cockpit unless you were sitting in the tail of the airplane and you pull back on the stick and you look up in the nose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the one in the horizontal, I think, is the one that I noticed that really kind of bugs me when it does it, where it says horizontal.
Well, let's take it down to 10.
But that's watch, yeah.
Okay, I'll keep an eye on it.
It's if it doesn't bother you, and you like it,
No, it doesn't bother me, but there's one other place that I can't remember which one it was that I also need to look at. Head anticipation. I wonder if it's not this one. I think it's going to be this one. as well. So pitch roll, yaw in flight. Let's disable the
But
yaw.
I tell you,
Make it 5. Yeah.
I use this, and I don't use everything in there, but I tell you, the vibration from gear and flaps and speed brake really add a lot of realistic immersion to me. You know, as a pilot, they may not be exactly accurate to the airplane, but when you pull the speed brake and you get the audible rumble and you get the little bit of shaking in the cockpit, I think that's great. I love that. And that's the way I have mine set too. You know, not too strong, just enough to be
noticeable.
You know, because especially when you're looking at the cockpit in the real airplane, if you got the speed brakes out, you know, the proper thing is you're supposed to have your hand on the speed brake handle at all times.
Yes.
Right. So you don't forget if in a time when you really need to. But with this XP Realistic, if you have the shake on and the audible rumble when the speed brake is deployed, that's your reminder that you need to stow the speed brake.
Yes.
Right? I know you got the light, but with no movement and no noise, and you don't have your hand on the handle like you would in the real airplane,
you
know, you don't have the cues. So I really appreciate XP Realistic for that. Right? It adds a lot.
Now, I can't fly without it. I've got it in X-Plane and FS 2020. I really can't fly without the cues and the movements and stuff. It's just part of what I love.
Well, interestingly, I've got a shaker, butt shaker for real cockpit. I don't have it hooked up when I'm sitting at my desk.
Okay.
But it turns out I don't even really need the butt shaker because I have two 10-inch bass woofer speakers that are in my center console.
Nice.
And I tell you, when I get the low frequency vibrations, I put my hand on the throttle, and I can feel it in the throttle. I can feel it in my feet. I can feel everything.
That's so
just
nice.
like the airframe, and it almost is. The butt shaker adds something to it, especially for touchdown bounce or what have you. But I almost didn't need the butt shaker because those bass speakers in my center console, the way they're mounted, it vibrates through the whole fuselage or through the whole cockpit.
Nice.
So I get the same effect, and with XP Realistic, it makes it even that much better. You know.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Mark Jones, we have put a comment in VA support in Discord. Please just add your comment there as well. Marco did a maintenance thing. When you start ACARS, when you look at your dashboard on the VA, and you should have received an email as well. So there's 3 places where he did give advanced warning and where he did notify us he's done, as well as in Discord, by the way, in VA support. So just go add your voice. So he sees mine works. And one of the things I discovered this morning was that Uncle John, for instance, was on an old version. So please make sure that you enable check for betas at startup in your VA client. If your client is old, it might be a mismatch with the system that's currently loaded, because the whole idea of the maintenance overnight was to update the system. So please make sure. Let me show you guys quickly here while we're talking about it. You guys on Discord won't see it, sorry guys, but let me just show these guys. If you go into your settings over here, please make sure that this is ticked, check for beta versions on update, and make sure that you are up to date. You need to be on 2449. Okay, so just check that and obviously save it. Make sure you do this when X-Plane is not running, otherwise you're going to have an issue. It won't update when X-Plane is running. Okay, so make sure that is in place. And then, like I say, add your voice to VA support, please, so we get a broader sample range, you know, from different people. Okay, yeah, just add your story. Oh, speaking about trim, Christer, Twixter,
Yeah.
Sasso made a comment, our other pilot, he made a comment that the trim was a little bit excessive 1 or 2 versions ago. When you do your testing, just listen to the trim.
Yeah, I was, you mean as far as where it was located?
No, it was excessively trimming, click, 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 click the whole time. Up, down, up, down, up, down. As the aircraft was ascending, it was in the climb. He asked me, but why is the Zibo trimming so much? It's not supposed to trim that much.
Yeah, that's, you know, as you know, all of the updates that we've done in the last 2 weeks are, as previously discussed, is basically like the whole mod is reworked. You know?
I know.
So a lot of that's in the pretty much in him tuning the code, and it's not doing it now probably because he's refined that a little bit.
Okay.
But that's not something that it's in my control. As long as he knows about it, and I know he was aware of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's getting it worked out.
Wonderful. But, okay, no, I just thought I'd mention it while Christer was mentioning trim. Yeah.
Yeah, because, and a lot of that was because as he was trying autopilot code dialed in, the autopilot was not, it was, how can I say this? It was causing that oscillation a little bit because it was a little bit behind. Like the control yoke would make a movement, and then it's supposed to immediately follow up with trim and zero out the forces. And it was kind of like out of sync a little bit. So that was what was causing the constant trimming back and forth. I brought that up to him, and I know he tuned on it. I haven't seen it in the current version, but then again, I'm also working with a different set of airfoils. So I may be not seeing exactly the same thing you are, but I don't hear you getting, now I have my trim sound on all the time, so if I'm not looking at it, I'm hearing it. I don't know if you do or not. But
no, I do the same. And I did hear it was excessive, but now that you mention it, I didn't hear it this morning. It wasn't as much, so it's probable that Zibo just tuned it.
Yeah, and it was, like I say, that was a lot of what was causing the oscillation people were seeing, is that the autopilot was actually inducing it because he hadn't yet had a chance to tune it for all of the changes that we made. And,
gotcha. Makes sense.
You know, because, you know, as we said earlier, and I don't know, a lot of people heard that from one of the previous streams, but, you know, we had, as you know, we had gone to the laminar fuselage and done away with my fuselage airfoils. We were hopeful that we were going to be able to tune it using that alone, and in the end it didn't work. So in the end we went back to the Zibomod fuselage airfoil system, but we were able to incorporate it along with the laminar fuselage for special effects and for points of contact and that kind of stuff. So all of those changes, basically the whole airfoil system has to be updated. The engine, you know, ended up getting modified also at the same time. So we ended up with basically almost starting from scratch.
Absolutely. Now, I've mentioned that to the guys on stream as well. We are aware of it, you know, so I just mention things as it comes through, you know, and then obviously it's nice to get your feedback, and now we can let the matter rest, you know.
Oh, you know, it's almost like, you know, it's almost like we almost need to do a video, a series of videos every time we change it, but nobody has time for that, for us to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just explain what's going on with the changes as we do it, because, and I'm not saying that we will do that, because obviously as fast as Zibo works in turning out tuning updates, you know, the amount of time to just sit down there and record all of the changes and explain it to people is time consuming.
Yeah.
But so sometimes we're able to, you know, discuss it and sometimes you have to, right? There's certain things that happen. People have to know what's going on, especially like all of the flight control changes we had. a few months ago, right? Where we
Yes.
added the changes to the stabilizer trim and the elevator tab system and very extensive changes that were causing big changes in the way the flight model handled. So that's kind of what's going on here. But I'm actually quietly excited about where we're at right now because, you know, it's been a breakthrough to get the engine code where it is right now.
Absolutely.
And that takes one of the variables out. You know, if you don't know if your lift curve is correct or your drag curve is exactly correct and or your thrust curve, you can see what I'm talking about here. You've got 3 different variables that have all kinds of sub variables within them: idea, speed, altitude, Mach number, weight. These all things you need some predictability. So if you get one of them ironed out where you can prove that it is doing things accurately, then it makes it much easier to tune everything else.
Absolutely.
And that's where I'm at right now. I'm able to, if I can rely on the thrust settings being correct, then I can look at my drag and my lift profiles and my Mach drag and stuff like that. Now I can map out where things need change, where before you still kind of guessing, trying to put all those variables together in a way that makes sense. And so you test and you test and you test, and then just based on those tests, you get an instinct for where to go with it. But it makes it much. It's kind of like doing any math equation, right? You need some known variables, you know, to anchor. If nothing is known, then it's all garbage in, garbage out, because your equations won't work if you don't have any known factors to deal with, right?
Yeah, you're shooting without aiming. Yeah, you're shooting without aiming into the dark.
Yeah.
Flying blind, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And when I'm tuning drag, you know, I mean, that's one of the things I have to look at. I go, you know, you start out at a certain altitude and a certain weight and then accelerate the airplane from minimum speed all the way to maximum speed, and then you record the drag change, and of course it should be predictable because drag changes at the square of the change of the velocity. So if it changes at a different rate than is predictable by that, then you know something's wrong. You know you don't have the proper drag profile set.
Absolutely.
You guys are checking for parasite drag.
Yeah, you know, it's that's another aspect of it, right? Because laminar does model parasite drag. So you've got flat plate drag, you've got lift-induced drag, then you got parasite drag, and then you've got Mach-induced drag. So all of those, depending on where you are in the envelope, can have a different effect on the aircraft. And so you've got to kind of be able to pull some of them out. Yeah. And the hardest one is the Mach drag. It is very delicate. And, you know, I can make it just a tiny change in a setting, right? And then I'll test for it and see how it does, and I end up with a drastic change. And I've got to go back and say, okay, well, why did that make that big a difference? It shouldn't have. And, you know, it's you know, if you know exactly, if you got all the numbers for the aircraft, then all of the numbers match the simulation physics engine. In other words, the physics engine interprets everything properly, then it's pretty predictable. The problem is none of us have all those numbers, right? We can get close, but Boeing doesn't publish everything. There are certain things that are what you might call proprietary information,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, correct.
You don't give away all your good stuff to the competition.
Sure.
So, so even if you have flight test and or wind tunnel data to work with, there's usually something it's usually, and a lot of there's a lot of wind tunnel data on the internet, but most of it are not actual Boeing tests. They're people at some university that are doing a wind tunnel simulation, and they say this is what the number ought to be. May not be correct. You just don't know until you test them. But we do have engineering data, but like I say, Boeing doesn't share all of that in the published data. They give you enough, and a lot of it, I'll be very honest, I am not an aerodynamic engineer, and I am not a physics master. I go based on my knowledge of aviation for the last 45 years, and my understanding of aerodynamics at a user's level, right? But for me to sit down and do the equations to be able to predict everything that the flight model ought to do, Zibo can do that. I'm always amazed. He can go down and he can pencil out very quickly an equation and figure out what something ought to be, as long as he's got the right data input. Me, I have to test it. I do the scientific method. I test it, evaluate it, make a change, retest it.
Yes.
And sometimes that's wrong.
Precisely.
More often than it used to be, I get it pretty close to right. I can predict what I want, but after 7 years of doing this, I've got a pretty good idea, how to tune the flight model pretty predictably. But that doesn't mean it's always going to be exactly correct, because you look at the entire flight model over the whole speed spectrum, altitude, low Mach, high Mach. There's always something pops up in a corner you weren't looking at before that makes you question everything you did before, because it doesn't come out predictably. So you say, okay, well, something that I've got in there isn't correct. It's like an Easter egg hunt, trying to find out where the problem is in the flight model. This is one of the things with Laminar that is way, way ahead of Microsoft. And that is that I can look at it instinctually, and I know whether something's a lift problem, whether it's an induced drag, or it's a flat plate drag, whether it's a Mach thing, and I can make changes in the flight model just based on those aerodynamics and get predictable results, predictable changes. You can't do that in Microsoft, right? You got to have the numbers to punch in there and know what they are. And they have to be, as it interprets it. But that's what has been X-Plane's big thing since X-Plane 1, right? Is trying to model actual flight physics and then physics of the atmosphere and actual, aerodynamic effects. So, the blade element theory is not just a talking point. It really is something that's way ahead. Even the 6 degree of freedom simulators don't use that. They use lookup tables, which is kind of like what Microsoft does.
Yeah. Sure, you're trying to say something?
Oh, yeah, I was going to mention
that's
something.
you. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, I just want to make sure I wasn't stepping on anybody. Speaking of data, right, and finding things out via scientific method, just tire pressure alone in tires. About 2 weeks ago, I was flying the Cessna in kind of a hot day. In the morning, tires, when I did check the tires on the airplane, did some landings, right? Yep. Made a measurement distance, right? Came back in the afternoon. They're warmed up. The tires were so freaking hot once we landed, because the air pressure inside the tire expanded, that actually effectively doubled my landing distance, because I could barely get any effective brake pressure onto the tire. That's not even factored in the POH in the Cessna.
There you go.
Just that alone, I was like, I sat down, I was like, how the heck are we locking up brakes? I barely even touched them. And that's when it occurred to me, I was like, we're not locking brakes, we're literally just skidding tires, because we're not effectively gripping enough surface of the tire on the runway.
Yeah, and that's it's based on the conditions you have, right? Temperature, and whether you've got a damp surface versus and it gets pretty complex after when you get right down to it. There's nothing that's straightforward when you're doing these simulations. And
Yeah,
to be honest, you know, I mean, I used to do simulator tests for the FAA as an operating instructor. I'd run the IOS, and
were you a ground instructor?
every other year, every second year, the simulator has to be evaluated. Every single one of them have to be reevaluated to be certified. I guess I shut up for a moment while
I've landed. It's fine. It's
Nico's
fine.
trying to land here.
Yeah, go ahead.
But you know, we would run into the same kind of problems you run in your desktop sim. You know, you go to a certain airport, and the coefficients of frictions on the taxiways and/or the runways are not correct, and then landing distances are off, or the airplane slides around on certain surfaces when it shouldn't. And it is the same kind of problems you can run into the desktop sim, run into with the professional 6DOF sims, and they evaluate all that. We would start out with, you'd be sitting on the runway, and they would bring the fog level down to, you know, in RVR of 600, which for the FAA be 6 feet, right? 125 meters. And then we would count the runway lights, you know, the side lights that we can see, right? And it, you know, they're at known spaces, so the inspector would be looking at, okay, now how many runway lights can I see? That's how dedicated or how sophisticated the tests are, right? And then we would taxi around the whole airport, and we would look at all the taxiway markings and hold short lines and all of the runway lighting and the taxiway lighting, and is this supposed to have centerline lighting? And it's a very sophisticated test. What people don't realize is that with the professional approved simulators, only certain airports that have been tested like that are allowed to be used for training and testing. You can use other airports, but you can't, anything that somebody has to be tested on, they have to be introduced to that information, or should be introduced to that information on an approved airport that's had all this stuff tested to make sure that it's working like the real one. And so we could do training at other airports, but for instance, I couldn't do takeoff and landing practice at an airport, or have them do a landing or a board or a reject or anything on an airport that does not have an approved runway by the FAA. So when you go into each simulator, there's a list of approved airports and a list of approved approaches. And if that particular airport doesn't have the approach you're trying to do that day, then you're going to have to use a different airport that has it. So, but usually this is all worked out ahead of time in the syllabuses. But a lot of people don't realize that, you know, when we're flying around in X-plane going all over the world, right, and we complain when we don't see an airport properly modeled, you know, you might only have a dozen fully approved and certified in models in a real simulator, because the FAA and or the EASA inspectors that have to come in and inspect every one of them, and it takes hours and hours of testing. So it's a big deal, you know. We're pretty spoiled. We've got the much better visuals than they have. We've got more model airports than they have, you know.
Well, and then the funny thing is too, like the one when I was conducting my instrument rating training, this was about 1.5 years ago. The one we used at our school for just the Cessna, I mean, the graphics were like abysmal. And the funny thing was, you know, I'd sit there and I'd start flying the plane, and I was like, dude, I banked 10 degrees, and we feel like we're doing a 60-degree steep turn in the real airplane. I mean, it was horrible. I'm like, this doesn't even fly close to the real thing, not at all.
Yeah, some of them, you know, some of them are helpful. I think all simulators, unless they're very poorly modeled, they all, one of the good things when a simulator doesn't feel right is it helps you develop good, you talked about instrument training, right? one of the most important things about instrument training is learning to focus on the instrument readouts and not on, right, the sensations, sound and feel. And that's one of the big instrument skills, right, is learning to ignore all those other inputs and use the instruments as your primary reference to the world.
Well,
And so actually, in some ways, yeah, if a simulator doesn't fly very well, in some ways it helps you develop those skill sets. But as a pilot, it's annoying as heck, to have not have it feel right.
And you're absolutely right. Like when I stepped into the airplane after flying that again, it was much easier to fly the real airplane. The problem was, you're used to how something. The thing is when you're doing procedures in a sim, and then you go to the plane, and especially when they're equipped differently, it gets to be kind of frustrating in the beginning stages, but eventually you learn both. But in the beginning stage, the FAA has made a specific, they had a recommendation that if you're going to fly an airplane under instrument flight rules, that you have at least 50 hours with that equipment, that exact setup, just to make sure that you're proficient in that setup.
Yeah, that's sadly, and of course, having accidents, fatal accidents, is what causes all of this stuff. But it is a common complaint that you will see. Airline pilots say the same thing. The first time they get into whether it's a 737 simulator or some other simulator, when they first get into it, especially the first time they go through the training, the number one complaint is it's too sensitive. Well, and we're talking 6 DOF approved simulators for where you can get now under FAA, right? You can get a type rating and technically be legal to go fly that airplane with your type rating in the simulator. That's not true for EASA and most ICAO regulators. You've got to have airplane bounces before you can get your type rating. But under FAA, you can walk out of the simulator on check ride day with a type rating in your pocket. But having said that, it's still the same thing. The pilots get out of the simulator, and then they get in the airplane, and they're two different things from field. So, we're so used to using all these sensational inputs, whether it's our hearing, seat of the pants, G loading, all of those inputs we're used to having, and then you're in a simulator and you may not have, for instance, when we're training in a simulator, most instructors are the same. They're going to turn the sound way down. So you're not hearing airframe noises. You're not hearing the engines very much, so that there can be communication in the cockpit for effective training, or, hearing and listening to what the instructor's saying and vice versa. But that's not the natural environment, right? Because in a Boeing, for instance, in the 737, it's a lot noisier cockpit than that.
Yeah.
Also,
and that's what they did too, is they would, well, they would also, at one point when I was doing approaches, they would literally turn the radio up. They'd turn the radio on, they'd turn the marker beacons on, they would turn on static. They would do everything they could, especially in the sim, to try to mitigate distractions. They would try to keep you focused. That way you didn't distract, or they'd drop a pen on the floor, see if you'd be a sucker and go grab for it,
Well, that's the thing is, when you're first learning to fly instruments, you haven't developed your disciplines yet.
Right.
Skill sets are, learning to fly attitude instruments is one thing, but developing the disciplines of, I used to say this to my, there is, when you know that you're a real instrument pilot, you know it when you suddenly realized, after you're out in the real world operationally flying in instrument conditions, that you no longer recognized or noticed consciously when you went in and out of cloud, right? when your visual cues were lost, and you just automatically transitions to your instruments for 100%, and you didn't even think about it. Because when you're a new instrument pilot, that's a very conscious choice, and even a little bit uncomfortable at first, until really acclimated to flying on instruments and trusting them in the real world. And that's why I say that's when you know that you've become an instrument pilot, in fact, regardless of the license in your pocket, when you don't even notice when you're in and out of cloud, other than the fact that you have the cues that say, okay, well, I need to look outside to land the airplane or this or that, you know, or just be aware of your surroundings. But it's not something that is consciously something that is very much affecting your awareness, you know, every time you pop in and pop out of the clouds. You suddenly realize your brain didn't even register it. It's there back in your subconscious, but you're not thinking about it. And that's when I knew, anyway, for me, that I had gotten to a certain level of ability as an instrument pilot to be comfortable. And
still one of my favorite ratings I ever got. It was great.
It's one of the most important ones, right? And of course, all the airline transport pilot licenses is a glorified instrument rating, technically.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a higher level.
I just wish I don't have to go to 1250 to get to the airlines, but I'm in the U.S., so I have to go for. I did my private instrument commercial, and then did the aviation ground instructor in the U.S. And you know, I have to wait till 1250 to get to the airlines. It's not, you know.
You got an ESA license? Are you ESA licensed or?
No, I'm FAA.
Yeah, because and that 1250 is with waivers, right? So
correct.
Now didn't used to be a big deal when of course, history is history. Yeah, we have to deal with what we have to deal with. But when I got my first this is going to make me sound old, but that's because I am old. My first airline job in 1984, and basically I went to work as a professional flight engineer, and I had a private pilot's license and 900 hours, right? But I was a flight engineer. I had a flight engineer turbojet license and an airframe and power plant mechanics license. So that got me an airline job at the time. Later, I finished my ratings, and then 3 years later, I got into the right seat of a 727 with 900 hours and a commercial license. And that was acceptable then, right? So things have changed. They've made it harder.
Here in the States, both pilots must have an ATP, which is crazy.
Yeah, and that was a reaction to accidents that shouldn't have occurred, but it was an overreaction, right?
It was.
It really isn't necessary. The bottom line is you know, adequate training and evaluation is more important than how many hours are in your logbook.
Or especially the fact that it's both of those. Well, that's the thing, and that was the big argument I met with people. It was like, look, you're not flying too crewed environment half the time when you're building these hours. You're not flying IFR. You're not flying a transport carrier category aircraft. You're not flying, you know, CRM. You're doing SRM. You know, there's so many of the pieces of the puzzle you're not.
And you're not getting the kind of experience that's profitable to you to enter the airline environment where all of the above are required. So, and this is where ab initio training. Europe is farther ahead than the U.S. on this. If I was going to do a PhD, and at my age, I'm not going to be doing one, but that's what I would be doing it on is the proper way to do ab initio training, because, you know, 95% of pilots today, there are exceptions, but most of them, because of the high cost of flying, they're not there to have fun. They're there because they want to get an airline job. So we ought to change the training methods so that from day one, we're training to be what we're looking for, which is fly a jet aircraft in a two-man flight deck, and exercise and create all those skill sets, because you have to relearn all of that stuff after you get your base licenses, and that is negative training, right? You know, that teach a guy how to do stuff single pilot and then come back later and say, okay, now you got to learn how to do this as one half of a whole. And it should have been that way from day one if somebody's going for a professional pilot
Yes.
goal, right?
Yes.
So, and we're still training with the legacy of what they did 50 years ago. So that's unfortunate, but I very much enjoyed teaching in the simulator. I wouldn't mind going back to doing it, but you know, it is something that's I did it for for 8 years, and then I did it for another 7 years. The 8 years I did it just that was my job. I was an instructor or examiner, and I didn't fly the airplane. I just taught in the training center. And then another 7 years, I was both. I was instructor, examiner, and a line captain. And I much preferred that, you know.
Yeah, that looks like that'd be fun.
Yeah, and you know, it just it keeps you plugged in.
Yeah, I just passed 310 hours, but and I'm supposed to take my commercial multi here in about 2 weeks. And like I said, in Europe, I would have been, you know, I would be potentially going for an airline, but here in the States, it's like you have one option, CFI. That's the only option you have.
Yeah, because you
can't even get into the right seat of any airplane as a job besides CFI unless you have 500 hours minimum.
Well, that's you know, it's something everybody goes through. Is, you know, I mean, even before they had those requirements back when I was learning, that was the number one thing. How do you build hours, and how do you do it without going broke? So we all went through that. I was just fortunate when I pursued. I called it going in through the back door. I figured out a method in the late 70s and early 80s. There were no airline jobs. I mean, none. We used to joke about it. You had to be an astronaut with at least 3 lunar landings to get an interview, and that was pretty realistic in the late 70s. So, and I got my first pilot's license in 1975. So there were no hiring going on for years, and it wasn't until 84 when they did deregulation that some of that started to open up. But in order to get into the industry and make a living at doing what I loved, I actually joined the Air Force, became a flight engineer on 4-engine cargo transports on 141s. And then I got my airframe and power plant mechanics license